Hey, so today we're going to be replacing an AC compressor. This is a Saturn Ion 2003, but it has a very common engine in a lot of Chevys, and so we'll list all the cars that this is applicable for. We could just do the clutch, but we're going to do the whole compressor. I'll talk about that later. And main thing with this job, you want to get the whole AC system evacuated before you do this. The whole system is under pressure, and if you just go in there and start releasing fittings, Freon's going to go everywhere, it's going to get all over you, it's really bad for the environment, nasty stuff. So make sure you go to a shop, someone that has a machine that can suck all that out, and then once you've done the job, they'll put it all back in. Just make sure you do that before you start breaking anything loose. Shall we go? So as always, to help me take out the old part, I look at the new part, in this case the compressor, and look at where my bolts are. 2 up by the pulley, and then I have 1 on the back side there. Then this remanufactured AC compressor came with a little plug that goes over my my actual AC lines. So I'm going to leave that on there until I actually plug those in, just so I don't get any dirt inside this thing. Okay, so first thing we've got to do is get the belt off. And in order to get to the belt, we've got to loosen the tensioner. In order to get to the tensioner, we've got to make a little room. And all that is taking your air filter and air box off. So I've already loosened everything up, but essentially it's just 2 little clamps here. I'm going to take this sensor out here, pull this hose off, then you've got these clips on your air box. Might need a little help with the screwdriver. And 1 here, that lifts off. Okay, got 1 10mm nut down here, and once you get that off, then the air box just pivots out of the back. If we're going to take the air compressor out, we've got to take off the belt that drives it first, which is a serpentine belt that runs through all the pulleys. And in order to do that, we've got to lift up on this tensioner. And basically, you just want to use whatever you can to lift this wheel upwards and release the tension. They make a fitting on it for a 3/8 drive, so you can get some of those tensioner handles that they'll rent or sell. I just ended up using right angle needle nose, hooking it in here and lifting up on it. Anything you can just to lift up, as long as you're not damaging the surface or edges of this pulley. Basically, I'm just grabbing it here and I can lift up with enough force. It enables me to loop this belt right off the alternator, like that. So it looks to me like it's the clutch on this AC compressor that's actually gone bad and falling apart. And you can just replace the clutch. But in looking at this, the price was very similar for a whole clutch kit versus a remanufactured AC compressor. Plus, I'm a little worried that this clutch has been shaking really hard off center for a long time, and I'm worried about bearings inside the AC compressor. I'm not sure how long it's going to last anyway. Plus, you usually need at least a puller and some other tools to get the clutch off the AC compressor. So in the end, it's almost just easier and not that much more expensive to just go ahead and get a whole AC compressor. Along with this, you want to do work on your AC compressor as soon as possible. You don't want to let it go if it's making weird noise, clutch is falling apart, because if this actually seizes up, you'll fill your whole AC with little bits of metal and particles, and you'll jack up a whole lot of things just beside the compressor. Okay, before I actually break loose the old AC compressor, I'm going to take off the AC lines off of the old one, just so that when the compressor comes loose, I don't break any air conditioning lines. For this job, pretty much all you're going to need is a 1/2-inch wrench or socket, and I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Again, make sure that you've decompressed or had evacuated the AC system before you do this, or this is going to blow up in your face and spray you with Freon. I had a guy take the Freon out, but there's even still a little bit in there. You can hear it hissing as I loosen this up. Pull the bolt out, just press fit it in, come loose like that. So now they're free from the compressor. So now that I've got the AC lines out, I need to remove the mounting bolts, but before I do, there's one electrical connection for the clutch. Right there. Pulls it out so you can see right here. one tab there, and you just pull them out away from the plug and it unplugs. This upper mounting bolt here, don't get confused with the alternator bolt right there. It's directly underneath it right there. Again, 1/2 inch. Now the lower bolt. I'm just going to unplug this electrical connection here. Little tab and a pull, just so that I don't accidentally snap it off while I'm removing this bolt. Second bolt coming out. And now the third bolt in the back. Okay, so this third and last bolt, it's much easier from the bottom. Plus, I'm going to drop the compressor out to the bottom anyway. So jack the car up as high as you can, give yourself some room. And here we go. Okay, so we're loose. And it's going to be this dipstick tube is going to be kind of the main thing in our way. And with the other hand, you kind of want to push the AC lines, move it out of your way. Just don't put your face directly under this because there's going to be lots of dirt falling, potentially some Freon. So there you go, super easy. And as you can see, this clutch plate lost something. It looks like this tab broke off, so it's all off center, and it's just making it shake so bad, making all kinds of noise. And as I spin this pulley, it's actually really rough. It kind of has some hard spots, so I suspect stuff's broken inside. So I'm glad I'm replacing the whole compressor, not just the clutch assembly. Okay, before we put the new one in, we've got to prep it a little bit. You actually have oil running through your AC system that lubricates the compressor. It's the only moving parts in your AC system, and it has to be oiled. And they make a special oil for it. If you can look up in your manual, repair manual, or your online for what kind of oil goes in your compressor, but if you put this in, it'll match just fine with any existing oil that's in your system. So I recommend the ester. Look for how much oil actually goes in the compressor. In this case it said at least 5 ounces, so I'm going to put in 6. And it's going to go right in the opening for your high and low pressure lines. In this case I have a remanufactured compressor, and it's saying that there's oil that they use to test already in there. So I've got to drain that first before I put in the real stuff. Turn the pulley. So I got 3 big drips. Oh, there's 4. Not much is in here, but you want to check. Make sure there's not something already in there before you start adding. So you can use a measuring cup or something more detailed, but I just took my 8-ounce bottle that I bought and split it up with a Sharpie in 2-ounce sections. So I know I'm just going to go down to 6 ounces and I'll be good. So you can actually put it in the high or low side. You can put this straight into the lines, but I'm going to do it right into the compressor. And oops. I'm going to turn this a little bit. Oh, be careful. Sometimes it'll spit at you. Okay, according to my little graph here, I am only putting in the minimum 5 that they're recommending. But it's coming out this side, and I'm almost all the way full on this. And I'm going to put this little cap plug that they gave me back over it while I wrestle it into place, so that I'm not dumping oil out, and more importantly, I'm not getting dirt inside that, because that'll destroy a compressor. All right, so I'm just going to throw this up in the same position, and I'm going to get all 3 of my bolts started and snugged up a little bit before I go to the lines. First one is always the toughest. Alright, started enough. Alright, so I got all 3 bolts back in. It's mounted up. Now it's time to connect the AC lines. What I'm going to do before I take remember the plastic or the rubber cap that's still on the compressor. I'm going to leave that on for a second. And what I'm going to do is just make sure I clean up the end of the lines here. So I'm just going to lift up these lines. Just make sure there's no dirt around the fittings, because this has to make a perfect seal. Otherwise it's going to release pressure and freon. Take my little toothbrush, make sure there's no little bits up inside the lines from when I pulled it out of the old pump, which was covered in dirt. Just make sure, due diligence. Okay, then I'm going to pull that rubber plug thing off. I'm going to loosen that bolt. Pull it off. And then slide these lines, press fit right back into the holes. There we go. Okay, then come back up top, install the bolt that clamps this fitting nice and tight. So you just want to make sure everything's really lined up and seated well before you start torquing on a bolt. So when you take this back in for them to refill it, they're going to do a pressure test, and they will see how well you did on that seal and if it's going to hold pressure. So now I'm going to reconnect all my electronics. That's for my air filter. So as you recall, I disconnected this little guy to make it easier to reach one of the bolts. So I'll clip that back on, and then I've got the actual clutch plug. Goes on the new compressor. And there you are, onto the belt. So I've got it over the crank pulley in the back, over the AC compressor in the front. It's underneath the tensioner and ready to come up and over the alternator. So just like when I took it off, I'm going to take my little right angle needle nose or something like this. It doesn't have to be these, something with a hook on it. And you just hook it under the back of this little pulley, and it's just pull it straight up and loop this over the alternator. Boom. So as always, when you're putting belts on, just make sure that on all the pulleys it's seated properly in between the 2 edge ridges, that it's not sitting up on top of one of those. Alright, now all you got to do is put in your other pieces. Make sure you get your points lodged back here for your air box, which will then allow you to pivot it down. Put your nut on. Gotta hook these tabs on the back side first. Now we'll then settle it. Clips, hose, okay, there you go. All set. All you got to do now is take it back to your good friend with the AC machine that took all your freon out. He puts it all back in, does a pressure test, maybe top up your levels, make sure everything's holding okay, and then you should be good to go. If you like this video, if it helped you out, go ahead and follow us below. Action. Oh, wait, what am I saying? Hi guys, welcome back.